Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Greg Braden.
So we are so thrilled and honored to have New York Times bestselling author and speaker Greg Braden with us. Thank you so much.
I am honored and thrilled to be here. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I trust you implicitly. I'm going to follow your lead in this dance.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. We've just been really enjoying ourselves, and we're here for your event, Conscious Living in a Time of Extremes. And so we have felt so loved and nurtured at this event. I don't think I've ever been to an event where
Well, that's good for me to hear. Thank you. I'm going to share that with our team.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so Bren and I have been talking about how we practice spirituality, the way you combine spirituality, ancient teachings, and then have that underlying kind of background of science really helps people really understand, appreciate, and practice. And especially from my engineering background, I can really appreciate having the foundation so that way people know what's behind it, so they practice it.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to all of us, and I think one of the mistakes that often is made is this sense that somehow science and spiritual principles are mutually incompatible. Mm-hmm. And I think the first thing we have to be very clear about is spirituality that we're talking about is very different from religion. Spiritual practices and spiritual traditions have been with us from the time the first human walked the earth. In its truest sense, spirituality is simply us, our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to one another, our relationship to the earth, our relationship to the cosmos. And that's what the spiritual principles are all about. The religions came along much later and created the rules and the dogma that they wrapped around these spiritual principles and the way they were applied, rather than helping people to feel close to themselves and helping families to bond and communities to bond and feeling close to the earth and the universe, a higher power. It drove a big wedge between them, and for many people, they now feel separate and further from all of those things. And this is where the spiritual traditions actually parallel the best science of the 21st century, now 20th and now the 21st century. It's just a different language. So they're certainly not talking about, in scientific terms, but the principles of connectivity, of a relationship between the heart and the brain, our ability to commune with the forces of nature. Those are the principles in the leading edge science of today, and some of them are over 5,000 years old. So if you take the religion out of the picture, now we have a direct link between the science and the spirituality. And my sense has always been, rather than making a choice between the two, if we marry them together, we empower ourselves in a way that is greater, even greater than either could be individually, more than science alone, which is great, it doesn't have all the answers, more than the spiritual principles, because the spiritual principles sometimes don't really help us to understand the nuts and bolts of how things work, what science is. So, long answer to a short comment. You didn't ask the question, but I think it's important to lay that foundation.
Absolutely. It is, and we really appreciate your work so much.
Thank you, and thank you for your kind words.
So people that are feeling that time of change, we've been talking about that the world's moving faster, and so people that are using that are watching this, that might be using that as an opportunity to embrace the change and move forward. You mentioned that in your own life, there was a period of time where you left the corporate world and then you followed your passion of being an author, and I'm so thankful that you did. And so people that might be using this time of change to do something similar to that, what advice could you give them?
Should I look at this camera? There's so many ways that we can go about this, but what our ancestors have always said, our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions, have always told us that we live in a world of cooperation and mutual aid, and that now is precisely the language that the best science of our time is using to describe our world. Science has now overturned the ideas of Darwin, telling us that we live in a world of survival of the strongest. Those are Darwin's actual words, survival of the strongest. We have a society based on that principle. We have an economic system that's failing because it's unsustainable. Corporate systems failing because they're unsustainable. The way we use resources failing because they're unsustainable. They're all based in this idea of survival of the strongest. Because they're failing, it opens the door to new opportunities and new possibilities. And the science and the ancient traditions tell us where those possibilities exist. And what we now know is that nature is actually based in the model of cooperation and what biologists call mutual aid. And because of that, it changes the way that we go about looking at the shifts in our lives and our world. If the world were in fact based in competition and conflict, the old way of thinking, what can I get from the world that exists? What can I get from this choice? What's in it for me? That would make perfect sense. We don't live in that world. The world we live in is based in cooperation, so that means we have to change the question rather than what can I get, what can I give, what can I share, what can I offer, how can I contribute to the emerging world, recognizing that when we contribute our soul's gifts, our deepest passions, the things that we love to do, not necessarily what our degree is in or our training or our certificate or what we have experience in, but what we love to do, that's the unique gift that we bring to this world. And when we can contribute that to our families and our community, we are actually receiving in perhaps even greater ways than we could in the old way of thinking. So as you go through the changes, I'm going to invite you to do just this. If you haven't already, ask yourself, what can I give? What can I share? How can I contribute to my family, to my community, with my passion and the things that I love? And don't be surprised if when you ask that question, an entire vast array of new opportunities opens up, because it always works that way. My sense about the change is the better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to embrace the change. And I think these concepts in this brief time we've had together, these are key concepts in helping us to answer the question, who am I, who are we, and what do we know about ourselves now that maybe we've forgotten in the past. And with these ideas in mind, I think the change becomes much less frightening, and it gives us the tools to literally thrive, not just survive, but thrive in this new world.
Wow, what an amazing answer. I love that.
So,
And so, to that regards here, we got your new book, The Turning Point. Yeah.
Beautiful book. You know, I designed that cover.
Wow.
It's my cover design.
Perfect segue, because it talks about a lot of stuff you just mentioned in your answer here. So, if people want to dive in and learn more about you and everything else, where will they find you?
You can find me at the World Wide Web on the internet, www.greggbraden.com, GreggBraden.com. Books are sold wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever bookstores are still left. Yeah, and the website has a lot of places as well. And the website has a lot of videos and articles that go a little bit deeper into what we've just touched upon briefly here today. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you both. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.